Hey, what's up guys? It's just Jake Reviews, and today instead of doing a normal car talk Monday, I'm going to give you an explanation of how reliable a Toyota is. Now, a lot of people think that these cars are invincible. Well, to a point, sort of, but you do have to maintain them just like any other car. So today, behind me, I have my current car, which is a 2010 Corolla S, and I've owned this car for 3 years now, and it has over 120,000 miles. And well, it has been very reliable. It has had some hiccups, so I'm going to explain what can you expect of owning a car like this, and should you buy one for a long period of time. Obviously, if you want the end question, yes you should. So if you don't really want to hear anything else, you can end the video now. But if you want to hear more information of what specifically you might have to work on, please continue. In terms of having to do anything major go wrong, I haven't really had anything like that. But one of the biggest things I recently had was the alternator. If you don't know anything about cars, the alternator is what keeps everything in line. It kind of keeps things, it charges the battery, it keeps the engine turning, a bunch of other stuff. And if it goes bad and the engine can't turn it over, the car won't start. I want to say almost last November, it was about due for an oil change, which you should do on this car anyway. Every single car needs an oil change, and it started having this weird issue to where it kept making this weird noise when I would start it. But after a while, driving it a while, it would quit. My dad thought my dad who works at a body shop, he thought it might be a power steering belt, or maybe the engine belt, something. He didn't really know exactly, but he thought, oh, it must be the power steering belt going belt, because previously, before this car, I had a 98 Corolla, and that car had a steering belt, because back then that's what they had, and it after I believe it had like 100,000 miles, something like that, it went out because, well, it's old and things like that break. So he thought that was it. When he finally got to the shop, he finally realized it was an alternator. And so that's one thing I had to fix. And I thought the car that could never happen because it's a Toyota. It's reliable. No, these cars are invincible. That's what a dealer would tell you. What they don't tell you is if you own a Toyota for more than what the company thinks you're gonna own it, like more than 10 years and put a bunch of miles on these cars, they don't tell you, like, oh yeah, you need to make sure you change all these certain parts every so often. They're not going to tell you that because they don't really expect you to have the car that long. They expect you buying new ones in 2 years, because that's what a lot of people do when they buy new cars. But a lot of people who buy Toyotas generally can't afford to buy a new car every 2 to 3 years, so they buy this Toyota because they can last a very long time. Well, for those people who don't know, you should know that you do have to replace some stuff. Not only did this car need a new alternator at 120,000 miles, but it also needed a new engine belt. If you don't know what an engine belt is, well, actually, it's right here. Let me pop the hood and I'll show you. Alrighty, here is the engine. This is a 1.8 4-cylinder. I forget what the destination is. I think I did review this car last year, so if you want to see a full review on that, you can look at that thing. I go more in detail in there. But here's an engine. This is your engine cover, obviously. And under, if you can see, yes, right here. Right here is a belt. This is called an engine belt. There's a bunch, I believe this engine, I think it has 1 or 2, I forget how many more cars. A V8 I think will have 2 because splitting the V, different engines, different ones, but that's an engine belt. 120,000 miles, this car needed a new one because this go bad. I had no idea that this car needed that. A lot of people who buy this car think, oh, I'm never gonna have to change that out. It's invincible, it never needs anything. Well, sorry to tell you this, you do have to replace these things. It's just unlike a F-150, which you replace this stuff at about 60,000 miles. With a Toyota, you don't have to replace it until 120, and depending on the car, they can probably go for maybe 130, 140. Depends on the car and depending on the year. An older car, like my 98 Corolla, you're kind of gonna replace that stuff A lot of stuff is gonna go bad, not because of the miles, because it's so old. And that car had terrible brakes because the brakes are made of metal, and what does metal do? It rusts. And after 20 years, well, that thing is rust. So the brakes don't really work as much because it's just an old car. This is a 2010 car. The brakes work pretty well. This car, I don't know why they did this, but this car actually had both discs and drum. And in performance standpoint, if you discs are better than drums, but drums are much cheaper than discs, so I see why they did that. But the brakes are pretty good. And so for this era of car, you shouldn't really have any brake issues. Now, in another 3 or 4 years and more, and another 100,000 miles, that may be different. But for now, you shouldn't really have any issues. Now, what else can you expect from this Toyota? Well, besides your annual oil change, you gotta be sure you do that. And in terms of engine-wise, amazingly, this thing is one of the strongest engines you can buy. It's amazing what the Toyota has made. These things are invincible. Even, I believe, Jeremy Clarkson did this, I think a couple years ago. Back when in early Top Gear, he took an old Tundra, or I forget what it was called, an old Toyota truck, and put it through hell, and the car still ran. The body was falling apart, but the car still ran. So yeah, and the engines are still made that way. So really, when people are talking about how reliable Toyotas are, they mainly mean the fact that this engine and everything and all the mechanical issues, they generally will never stop running. As long as you make sure it helps keeping new parts and everything, this thing will never stop running, no matter what you do to it. Well, if you set it on fire, it may not run anymore, but in normal instances, as long as you don't run it through an ocean or something like that, you should watch, which it may, I don't know, I would like to see that. So anyways, what people say, these cars are incredibly reliable, is mainly they're talking about this and the transmission. No matter what crap hell you put it through, the car will still run. It's amazing how reliable these things are. People have Toyotas in and really third world countries, and they're really old cars, but they keep running. They're just very reliable machines. Now I can't say that as other Japanese brands. Honda's really good, but Nissan lately, it hasn't been good, but they used to be. It depends. With the Toyota, you never have to worry about this ever really having too many issues. Now, in terms of cost, how much does this cost me? In terms of oil changes, this is very cheap to do. Things like $30, something like that. Really cheap to do oil change. Now, when this car broke its alternator, not only needed an alternator, it needed the power. It also needed all the belts replaced. So the engine belt, like I said, that thing. I think the power. No, this car doesn't have a power steering. A lot of belts had to be replaced, and it was almost $1,000. It was like $980, a lot of money because it just needed that. Now, most people who have a job making money, that may not too big for them, but no, if you are like a kid and you just park this car and you really don't make that much money, no, be careful on the miles and be sure this stuff has been done, because usually people like to sell them before they have to do that. That's why they have a warranty. Another thing about the warranty, these cars usually come with 10-year warranties, because like this car right here, 10 years old, and it still runs and drives like new. Even though this car doesn't have a warranty, but Toyota does really offer them because they don't expect anything to go wrong in 10 years. Like before the alternator blew, I didn't have any issues at all besides switching the oil change. Never had a single issue. Well, except for battery. I had to swap out the battery. Which is, like I said, that's something you have to do. So, what I'm trying to say is, these cars aren't invincible in terms of you never have to do anything to it. You do have to maintain it. Just like this beautiful house. You do have to maintain a house. You have to maintain yourself. You can't just sit around doing nothing all day. You'll get fat. Of course, a lot of people are doing that because of COVID, but you know what I mean. And the same thing goes with this Toyota. Yes, it's a Toyota. It's a very reliable car, but you do have stuff you have to maintain. So that's mainly what I'm trying to get at here. Now, other things that goes wrong in this car. Sorry about that. All right, let's hop inside. Now, in terms of starting and everything, you shouldn't really have any issues in terms of the infotainment because, well, there is not any. There's hardly any technology in this. This is a 2010 car. Sorry, my car's a little dirty. I pretty much live by this car. But yeah, I've never had any issues in terms of air conditioning or anything like that. But again, you have to replace that after a while. The only issue in terms of the interior is the CD. For some reason, one time I was driving, the radio just completely quit working. Like it wouldn't, like the buttons wouldn't do anything. I couldn't do it. It just wouldn't work. And then it came back on after I restarted the car. Weird thing. Not sure why I did that. Just be being lucky I might do that. Another thing you need to know about this car and other Toyotas. I'm not sure if you saw the little hose thing that's connected to the car. If you unplug that, the car will freak out. Like, no joke, the car will not keep running if it doesn't have that. What that is all the computers thing, and it's telling it that what the engine is, what everything is going on, and if it doesn't have that, it freaks out. So, unless you're working on trying to clean out, I forget what it's called, clean out the air filter, whatever it's called, do not unplug that. Otherwise, you may not start the car. Now, another cool thing about Toyotas, a lot of people would know, is when you put the key in, and it starts. Most cars don't do that. Sometimes you can get an F-150 with same amount of mileage, and it may or not start most of the time. Whereas a Toyota, it will always start, unless the alternator is blue. Then it may not start. But in other words, it's a pretty reliable car. So it's a Toyota. It's what it's made for. But it's not 100% invincible like everyone thinks it is. So this is a very reliable car. It's a Toyota, but it's not completely invincible. You will have to replace some stuff because that's just what cars do. They break. The thing that my good friend always says with the Toyota, it's not. Well, with any car, it's not. If it's gonna happen, it's when it's gonna happen. With a Jaguar, it's gonna probably happen every 10,000 miles. You're gonna have something going on. If it's a Jaguar, they're notorious for things going on. Toyota, you may not have a single problem for the first 5 to 10 years, but you will have problems eventually. So if you want to avoid those problems, I wouldn't recommend getting a car this old. Now, if you don't mind replacing a few things, because like I said, this ain't. $1,000 is a lot of money, but compared to other cars, how expensive they can get, like $5,000 for a BMW, some BMWs can rack up. It's not as bad as compared to other cars. So if you don't mind paying the $1,000 every so often, I highly recommend get a Toyota. But just know you're gonna have to replace some shit because that's just what it goes. So that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed this little talk and little explanation. That's it for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe for more, and hit the notification bell. I'll see you guys next video.